16. Yeah. I've had a deployment since then.
Gotcha.
I don't remember anything. I also had a concussion, so I think that's where a bunch of my brain cells went.
That'll do it every time.
I was doing map with the Marines, and funny story, we were practicing the leg sweep, and you kind of like grab their shoulders and sweep their legs, right? And I was paired up with this chief, and he about my size, but still a guy. And the Marine came by, and I'm ready to take the fall. I've got my little suitcase arms and my chin tucked, and the Marine walks behind him, and he's like, "Sweep her legs." And he was like, "I'll hurt her." And he was like, "The enemy doesn't care if you're male or female." So he swept my legs out from under me with all of his might. And I flew up, and like immediately my neck flew back. I hit my head on the deck. It was like a concrete asphalt thing. And, and I like saw stars circling, like in the cartoons, like little birds and the stars. And I was just laying there, and he was like, "I'm so sorry."
Oh, another thing, I know some people are hung up on language. We're not super hung up on language. So I listen to you've never done anything on your podcast that I would think you can't do here, just so you know.
Okay.
A lot of people curious, and just so you know, there's nothing you ever done on your podcast that I wouldn't have done. So as far as language goes, just so you know. So
yeah, this next one's kind of explicit. I get a little emotional in this last one. So
cool.
Yeah. Fair warning for you. Yeah, no,
that's fine. I mean, it doesn't bother me at all. I don't care. I'm in the Navy. I got you. I cuss like a sailor, but I try to limit the best I can for the audience, because this new military is different than when me and you joined and when Jamie joined. So people are a little more sensitive than they used to be. So.
Yep. 100%.
It's not for my ears, it's for their ears. So
understand.
Got your notes? You want to put them up here?
No, I think I can see them, but I don't want to get in the way of the whiskey.
All right. Y'all ready to get started?
I'm ready. You ready, Ian?
I'm ready.
Do it.
Okay. 3, 2, 1. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to E-14 Podcast. I'm Jamie Britt.
And I'm Heath Britt.
And together we are E-14. And today we have with us... Go, Heath.
We got Ian McGlynn, U.S. Army, 20 plus years service to our great country. And he is on the Why Whiskey podcast.
Thanks so much for joining us, Ian.
Oh, the pleasure's all mine. I'm absolutely just stoked to be here and chatting with y'all tonight.
Oh man, it's pleasure's all here. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself real quick?
Well, hold on. Let me put out the disclaimer first, because the views and opinions expressed on this podcast are those of our own and not the United States Navy or the United States Army.
You know what that means, right?
Or our respective commands.
True. Don't forget that part. You know what that means, though.
Go ahead.
You can take it or leave it.
You get so excited about that.
My favorite part. So back to where I was. Ian, can you please tell us a little bit about yourself, buddy?
Sure. Married my high school sweetheart. Been in the before we joined the Army. Been in the Army for 20 years. I'm a parachute rigger by trade. I've got 5 kids. Most of them are adults or about to be adults out on their own, which is wonderful. So all of them got the opportunity to grow up in the Army. I have a abnormal appreciation and love of history, which is only second to my abnormal appreciation and love of whiskey, which is why I do the podcast that I do. So
awesome, man. Thanks for that. So before we go any further, please let's just take a break for a word from our sponsors. All right. Thanks for coming back with us. So Ian did an awesome thing. We hooked up this podcast collaboration, and he sent me a few samples of whiskey. Hey, can you tell me a little bit about them? You want to hold it for a secret or what? Hold it for later?
So that's up to you. What I'd like to do, what I normally do is we'll talk about the one that we're drinking, and we'll kind of go down the line.
I like that idea.
I like that.
Mm-hmm.
I think we should start a pour.
Yeah.
I'm excited.
So grab number one.
Number one. Okay, so for the while Heath is pouring, I'm going to let everyone know that I am not a whiskey drinker. So Ian's going to be talking me a novice whiskey connoisseur through this. So if you do not drink whiskey, follow my lead.
So she's a weak ass.
So we're starting off with a great introductory whiskey. I noticed, Heath, you're an Irish whiskey guy. So I went with one of my favorite Irish whiskeys coming out of the Middleton Distillery in Cork County, Ireland. This is Powers Gold Label. So Powers Gold Label, that's kind of like their bread and butter, their main line that comes out. It comes in at 86.4 proof. So we're starting low and we're going to work our way up in proof a little bit. So the first thing we want to do is a lot of people like to look at the color. Whiskey's just pretty. It's beautiful. It photographs well, looks great in glass. It's just got that awesome color. So it's super pretty. If you swirl your glass around a little bit, you can see what they call are the legs. You'll see the whiskey kind of stick to the side and slowly kind of work its way down the side of the glass. All the legs are going to do is tell you what it's going to feel like in your mouth. If you've got super slow running legs that come down nice and easy, it's going to kind of feel a little bit more oily and coat your mouth a little bit more. If it comes down real fast, it's going to be a little bit thinner and watery. So after we look at it, we want to smell it before we drink it. So when we nose whiskey, we want to do this super weird thing, and it's awkward as hell. We want to breathe in with our nose and our mouth at the same time. Now we don't want to like snort it, right? But we want to breathe in nice and just take in all the aromas that our oral olfactory just kind of do.
Ian, it helps because I'm already a mouth breather, so this is kind of natural to me.
Perfect.
So wine has legs, so whiskey has legs also. So I didn't know that.
Yep.
You know, I'm glad you said to do it with your mouth open, because when I smelled it with just my nose, it was kind of like,
It's different though. It's different
but when you
mouth.
open your mouth, it's a lot lighter and you can actually smell flavor.
That's why I mouth breathe, because it's a little, it adds.
Yeah, you really get, I mean, you can get a lot of the whiskey about what you're about ready to experience before you even taste it, before it hits the palate. So we want to do this in 3 sips. 3 sips are going to give us really the full gamut of what we're expecting. The first sip for any whiskey, all it's doing is getting your tongue ready to receive the alcohol. So we don't want to base whether we like it or not off the first sip. We just want to take that sip, let it go, kind of roll it around our tongue, and then swallow it down. So cheers, friends.
Salud.
Coughing is okay, Jamie.
Thanks.
There she is. I was waiting for it. Can I tell you a quick story real quick, Ian?
Please.
So we went to, Jamie deployed in 2016, 2 months after we got married, right? She got deployed to Djibouti, Africa. And halfway through that deployment, I took some leave. She got some time off and we went to Dublin. Love Dublin. So, but I always hear when you go to Ireland, when you order Irish whiskey, get it straight. Don't ask for nothing with it, because they don't like that.
No, they'll definitely give you a hard time about that.
So,
and that's one of the awesome things about Powers is one of their catches is they are a celebration in distillation. A lot of whiskeys celebrate how they age, they celebrate their barrels. Powers really focuses on the grains that they use. This particular one is a blended whiskey, and how it's the distillate. They focus on the distillate being front and center and not necessarily the barrel, because there's a lot of whiskeys you drink that taste like oak, and
that's true. And that's true. I noticed that with a lot of Irish whiskeys, like other Irish whiskey, it's not as oaky as a lot of the other stuff.
The legs are still going down my esophagus. I still feel the burn going down.
Back to the story real quick. So I knew that, and I knew you shouldn't do that. Ask for a mixer with your Irish whiskey. So I said, Jamie, can I get you a drink? She goes, yeah. Can I get a Jameson and Sprite? I'm like, God dang it. We're sitting in the bar. I'm like, shit. So, but I did it. She's my wife and I love her. So it was a female bartender. I said, yes, ma'am. Can I get a Jameson and Sprite? He goes, can I give you a nipple with that?
Yes.
I was like, you got me. Yeah. It's not for me though. She goes, sure. She goes, sure, it's not.
Sure, it's not. Like the story. Yeah. Blame it on the party you're here with.
Yeah.
Well, one thing I found about the whiskey community, though, really the folks that are in it to win it, they don't really care about how you drink it, just as long as you're drinking it. However you enjoy it is the best way for you. And you get a lot of people that snub and scoff. I've watched people take $2,000 whiskey and mix it in with Coke. That personally, like financially, I feel like that was a bad decision. But that's how they enjoyed it. So hey, that's on them. You know what I mean?
You could have bought some bottom shelf stuff if you're going to mix it, right?
Yeah, for real.
How would you compare Powers to like Jameson?
I prefer Powers more. So funny thing is they come out of the same distillery.
Okay, so I didn't know that.
Jameson, Powers, Redbreast. There's about 5 or 6 different labels of Irish whiskey that all come out of the Middleton distillery, and the recipes are what kind of make them distinct, and then how they create their barrels and age their barrels, and then age is there. So for me with Powers, and we're about to get into a different product of theirs, how they age it is where it really makes the difference for me personally. And I think it's better. The only exception to that would be the Black Barrel. Jameson Black Barrel is it's pretty legit. So
I haven't had it yet. I've been on their IPAs recently with they're aged in craft beer barrels.
Yep.
It's pretty good. I killed a bottle well, I didn't have the whole weekend, but I just finished it. I started it last weekend. I enjoyed it. It was good. So have you taken another sip yet, Jamie?
No, I haven't, because I was waiting for Ian to walk me through it.
Okay.
So with this sip, what I want you to do is I want you to take a little bit more time with it in your mouth. I want you to really kind of focus on making sure it gets all of the surfaces of your tongue. And then after you swallow it, I want you to kind of breathe out nice and slow. Here is where we're going to try to find flavors. We're going to see what comes out to us. And the beautiful thing about whiskey is that it has no objective language. It has, so whatever you taste is what you taste. And there's no wrong answers. People like hunt for like, I think I need to taste this. No, what are you tasting? So go ahead with the second one, coat your whole tongue, let it in, and then breathe it out nice and slow.
I don't know what I'm tasting.
Okay, so let me, so for me, I get kind of dried apples a little bit. If you've had those, they come in the little packages of like trail mix and stuff.
Yeah.
And then I get, those Pepperidge Farm, like really crumbly shortbread cookies.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like those. So those are the 2 notes that really kind of jump out to me for these. The dried apples, and then the shortbread cookies.
Damn, that's deep. I got a little bit of citrus, and that was mostly what I got. I can definitely see the apples toward the end. I did get a little bit of apple. I didn't notice it until you brought it up, but I didn't do the cookie thing. But I don't eat a lot of those, so they're not in my head. So maybe that's why.
Yeah, I just taste whiskey. I don't.
I apologize, Ian.
My unrefined palate.
We're dealing with noobs here.
Yeah, this tastes whiskey. No, what I noticed with it coating my tongue though, it was almost like a peppery kind of burn on my tongue. So like,
okay,
not burn, but like a spice.
It's like it's spicy.
Yes.
Spicy,
yeah.
Yes.
That's a common thing. Yeah, no. You'll actually with another one that we're gonna have here later in the evening, that'll probably be a little bit more bold, the spiciness. So you'll definitely pick up on that. All right. So the third one, we're gonna go right to it. We're not gonna wait for too much longer. Now, this one, we're gonna do a little something a little bit different. With this one, we're gonna put the whiskey in our mouth, we're gonna hold it there, and we're gonna chew. All right. And then we're gonna swallow. All right. So just trust me, do that. And then we'll talk about it when you're done. Just chew, 3 to 5 seconds.
Can you hear me swallow?
I'm chewing too. I know they can hear me chewing through this mic, like I'm eating a steak. I was good.
Well, that feels different, actually.
That's totally different.
So what you just did is you activated a lot of the esters and the alcohol in your mouth by that motion. It kind of opens everything up. What that's really great for is you're at a bar with friends. They come in, they're like, oh, I got the next round. They come in and they put, glasses of whiskey in front of you. So before you shoot that sucker down, get a little bit in your mouth, give it a chew. The hotter it is, the stronger that whiskey is. So that can kind of help you gauge whether you need to be shooting that or sipping that nice and slow. Maybe that's the only one for you that evening. So that's your indicator for, wow, this is really, really strong. I need to kind of take it easy, So that just kind of lets you know what the alcohol's doing as far as like the strength goes.
So would you say this is a strong one, or is this
a lighter one, I think, right? Ian?
like, I mean, I'm in the grand terms of whiskey, where would this particular one fall?
This would sit on the lower end at 86 proof. So whiskeys have to be 80%, 40 ABV or 80 proof to be classified as whiskey. So at a minimum, and so that's kind of your bottom end range. And there's people that think the higher in proof, the bolder the flavors. I don't know about that. My happy place is in that 95 to 105 range. But for Irish whiskeys, that 85 to 92 range is where I get all the great flavors. So this would be on the lower end for me, but for somebody who hasn't drank whiskey before, even starting at 80 is going to feel hot.
I was going to say, this is tough.
Yeah.
I feel
we're kicking her ass.
Yeah, no. Wait till we get through all the rest of them. No, but I just continuously feel it coming down my throat and down, it's warm, very warm.
I have a feeling that the last two I might be doing by myself. She's gonna be passed out. We got to muzzle her because she's gonna be talking shit.
So they call that a Kentucky hug, that nice warm feeling.
Oh yeah.
They call that the Kentucky hug. So
oh wow, that's
interesting.
Cool. That's good. It's good. I like it. I'm glad I picked this. I really enjoy Powers.
Mm-hmm.
You can find them a lot. Very easy. Their main three, which is the Gold Label, the 3 Swallow, and the John's Lane. Very easily accessible in most states, relatively comparably priced. Shouldn't be too bad, and they're just great. They're excellent to mix. So if you're a cocktail person, they hold up beautifully in cocktails, and they're also incredibly to sip neat. So playing with your whiskey is super important. And for new whiskey drinkers, that's the one thing I can say is don't just take it as is. I'm a neat drinker. A lot of people aren't. A lot of people like to mix it. They like to mix with ginger ale or seltzer water or, an ice cube and a drop of water. I've got a little water dropper that I keep here on the desk. Can totally change what you're drinking. A couple drops of water for a few minutes totally opens the whiskey up, proofs it down just a little bit, and you get a whole different whiskey in your glass than you had from the time you poured it to then. So it really, really don't shove off on a whiskey. It's like, oh, that's gross. Give it a second, let it breathe, add some water, play with it, and you might surprise yourself that some of the whiskeys that you think are horrible are actually pretty good.
I'm not a straight drinker or a neat drinker at all. I am a very mixed person, and this made it more tolerable the way that you told us to drink it.
No, it changed it. It was a game changer for sure. Yeah.
Well, great. Definitely. That's good news.
That's awesome. All right. Well, let's move to number 2 before while I'm pouring. If you could tell me a little bit, I want everybody to know kind of background, your service, where you're from, and what got you into the Army.
Sure. Grew up in Michigan. Got married halfway through our senior year in high school, and kind of got into a spot where we didn't have a lot of options. So I was like, screw it. Let's get the hell out of here. Let's join the Army. We were going to do 5 and fly. And that didn't end up being a thing. 20 years later, we're still here. So yeah, I picked parachute rigger because they told me I got to jump out of airplanes and, deal with parachutes. And I thought that was pretty cool. They sold me, they got me good. That was a good recruiter. Although initially the job was pretty challenging and had its unique issues. But at the end of the day, I've done some of the most incredible things throughout my career. So started with the 82nd Airborne Division, went up to Alaska, spent some time in the USASOC side of the house, was instructor down at the Free Fall School, spent up until last summer, I was at West Point at the military academy. I was the NCOIC of their parachute team there, which was an unbelievable, that's a dream assignment for my career. I'm so lucky, so lucky. And now I am up here at the Army Futures Command, the Soldier Center, working with new and upcoming parachute systems, hopefully that our troops will see in about 5 to 10 years.
So that's awesome, man. So it's Massachusetts you're in now, right? That's where you're located. Dude, I tell you, I remember and this is a great episode. Anybody's listening, that Wild Whiskey podcast with the talking about General Sherman. That was a awesome episode. But you talked about how you thought it was awesome that you jogged around the same area that William Sherman was training while you were stationed over at West Point, right?
Yeah.
That's a lot. That's historic as hell. That's but as enlisted, I'm assuming you're enlisted, right?
Yes.
Okay. As guys, senior enlisted guys, we hold on to that heritage. Mm-hmm. It's important. So when you're walking in the footsteps or walking the same ground that somebody like Sherman walked, it's got to just be you're in awe when you think about it.
Absolutely was. My whole passion for history started when I was 13. We went on this 2-week-long vacation where, my mom was destined to educate us in all things American history. So we went to Gettysburg, and my folks are theater majors. So I grew up in, a very drama-filled household. So we watched the movies Gettysburg, and the theatrical part of that movie kind of tugged some heartstrings. And then to stand in the spots where these events happened really kind of solidified my passion for that. So here, years and years down the road, I'm now standing where those names and even more, you think about the folks who graduated. You've got, we go look at the Civil War, Early, Reynolds, Grant. Robert E. Lee was actually the superintendent of the military academy for a few years, but right before the Civil War, he left that job to go and, he became a colonel, and then shortly after bounced for the Confederacy. So, and then you've got, up to modern day folks who have all been there, and where we would practice every day was right there on the marching field in the middle of the academy. And that is the same marching field that those, heroes of American history of service marched as cadets. I'm landing a parachute on the same place that Ulysses S. Grant marched as a cadet, and he didn't march very well. He wasn't very good. He wasn't a good cadet. He was a mediocre cadet, but became a great leader down the road. So, it was, and then to touch the things that they touched, Robert E. Lee's desk from when he was the superintendent is actually still there in the superintendent's house. Like the bottom floor of his house is a museum, basically.
Oh, wow.
So his actual desk is still there. And I don't think I was supposed to. So, but I did anyway. I went up, I touched it, and I was like, oh, this, just that connection to history is so cool. And then,
that's awesome, man. That's crazy. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I'm just going to ramble. So please.
No, I feel you. Like when I went to the Senior Enlisted Academy in Rhode Island, they're actually more than just the Navy goes there. Army has been there, Air Force, Marine Corps, go to that Senior Enlisted Academy. But some of the old MCPONs, Master Chief Petty Officer of the Navy, come out there. That's like our lead enlisted person for the U.S. Navy, right? You guys call them something else.
Sergeant majors.
But Sergeant majors of the Army or whatever. Anyway, I met number 7 shooter show. So MCPON number 7, Dwayne Bushy. And we had the chiefs and above had a little meet and greet, if you will, over at the Chiefs Club. And he was there drinking a beer. I sat down and talked to him. We talked for about a half hour, but he don't remember who the hell I am, but I remember that for the rest of my life. Because he was one of the originals, that paved the way. And it was just that little piece of history of what, him doing what he did when he did it is just freaking awesome. I'll remember that forever.
The connections to veterans and legit heroes that I've gotten the opportunity to, I've Medal of Honor winners. We had some of the Easy Company guys. We had a ball back. I think it was a private first class, and I went to the rigger ball that they had there at Fort Bragg, and there was 3 remaining guys from Easy Company, the Band of Brothers folks, that were there, and we got to talk. And these dudes are outside drinking whiskey and smoking cigarettes at 80 and 90, and I'm like, man, these guys are badass. And we watched a clip of the show. They were the guest speakers, and they came up and they're like, yeah, they almost got it right. If they would have doubled the amount of flack that would have shot at us, that would have been about perfect. And I was like, God bless, but I would never have gotten the opportunity to have that interaction with these heroes in any other place. So the history connection that the service has brought me has been phenomenal. Just unreal.
Awesome. That's great. Well, let's what are we drinking now? What's number two?
So we're sticking with Powers for now. We are going to this is the John's Lane release. So this is kind of like their top tier release. This is 12 years old. This is a single pot still. It's a blend of malted and unmalted barley. This should feel different. Now it is it's just a little bit higher. So this comes in at 92 proof. So there will be a little uptick in heat, but good thing is our mouths are already kind of warmed up to receive alcohol. Yeah. So this should not be as
I feel great
as the first.
She's good. She's ready, Ian.
Well, let's do it.
The legs are running. Well, the legs are running about the same speed down the glass as the first one.
So that means it's a little oily, a little bit.
So this should feel a little bit different in your mouth, just a little bit.
Okay.
When you're ready.
I'm ready when you are. Yeah.
Okay, so right off the get-go, a lot of the difference in what you're tasting is the pot still.
You saw me shake.
I did. That was intense.
Say again, Ian. The what?
It's the pot still. So a pot still is it's got a big pot on the bottom. It's got a real long neck, and then the coil comes off the top. So a single pot still is that's where Irish whiskey makes its money. So a lot of places are using column stills, and those look they're long, they're very tall, cylindrical, and they've got a bunch of little windows going up the top. So multiple layers of distillation happening all at once. You can produce a lot more whiskey that way. So a lot of your scotches, it's also called a coffee still, which was made by a guy in Ireland back in like the 1830s, 1840s, and none of the Irish whiskey makers wanted it. They're like, "No, get that shit out of here." So the Scotch was like, the folks up in Scotland are like, "We'll take it." And then Scotch ends up painting Irish whiskey for being like the premier whiskey of the world. So, so this is what you're tasting. You're tasting. This is triple distilled single pot still, and that's really it feels a little bit different in your mouth, and that's really where that's coming from, is how it's distilled.
So you talked about your mom was big on history, right? On teaching you kids history. So after that, did you just keep following and keep learning and keep researching stuff? Did it happen more before the Army or after you joined the Army?
So hard research happened after. I always had a passion for it, so I'd always read anytime we got a chance to go stop at a Civil War battlefield or a museum or anything like that. And then in the museums, I'm the guy that reads like almost everything. So my wife is dragging the kids through and yelling at me to hurry the hell up, and because the little button that was on a uniform of a dude 20 years ago was sitting right there, and I'm like, oh, look at that, it's a button. And she's like, it's a fucking button, who cares? So
yeah, right.
But decided that history was going to be something I do with my life forever. And I decided that in 2006. I made the decision, and then kind of started my college career at the age of 26, which is still active today, and going through, and really that's when I started really kind of getting into the meat and potatoes of history.
That's awesome, because you actually I can tell that you like it when you do your history.
Very passionate
about it. And you seem like you're almost telling us, you're not reading it. It's like you've done your research, and the way you put it out is like you're just telling us this stuff. You're not reading from a book or from a encyclopedia or from the internet.
So you've digested it, taken it in.
Right. It's fluid. It's very good. I enjoy the hell out of it, honestly.
Well, thank you. it's awesome. And it's not the big stuff. Everybody knows the big stuff. You look at characters in history all throughout, and these people did this big thing. But
Right.
and where I find joy is I want to know like the little things. With Sherman, for instance, the correspondence between him and his wife was phenomenal. Like that's where you got the picture of who he was, who she was, and what the Civil War was really all about for him. He was a badass who went and destroyed the South, from Mississippi to freaking Savannah. But the guy really was a very caring and loving husband who struggled with mental health throughout the war. Very, very he had to take a time out actually for a couple of years.
Yeah.
And these stories are captured. And his wife was really worried about, his mental health and him maintaining his mental health, and which kind of drove him to do what he did in the South. So it's those little stories, the diaries, the journals, the things that you don't read in textbooks. That's where we miss so much because they just broad stroke everything.
I was going to, that kind of just made me think, isn't it so funny that today's military has this stigma on mental health, and it's been going on since the dawn of time, the Civil War, that, everybody has struggled with it, but yet here we are in modern day military, and we've still got this like dark cloud that looms over us.
Yeah. And what I like to see though, and I've been able to see this in my time, in your time, you guys had an episode on resilience, which was amazing. And finally the military kind of sees the importance of teaching folks how to cope with what they're doing, with what they're seeing, and trying to actually establish programs more holistically than just saying, hey, drink water, drive on.
Right.
And that's wonderful. And war is gross. And you look at the stories and the accounts of after war care, specifically World War I, World War II, where there was some truly horrific things that were witnessed. And unless you're in the less than 1% of the human population, you cannot cope with that kind of being exposed to that kind of violence. It's not something that our makeup is made of. And so you have to have tools in order to cope with that. And the Army and probably the Navy didn't have those systems in place. And now there is one of the greatest courses I've been to in the Army has been, I went and did the Master Resilience Trainer course 2 weeks at the University of Pennsylvania. And it was absolutely wonderful, and put so many tools in your kit to not only help yourself bounce back from little everyday things and big life event things, but also helps you grab those folks that are in your care, your soldiers, your sailors, and help them, equip them to maintain and be healthy and really work. So it's a force multiplier, and it's wonderful.
Definitely. And you talk about war's gross, and absolutely is 100%. It's hell on earth. But also the waiting.
That causes the PTSD.
The waiting drives somebody crazy. Just waiting for something to happen, even though it may never happen while you're there. But you're under that fear or that alertness that something's about to happen. So you're always on high alert, and that can be maddening too.
Exhaustive, taxing on the body. Our body stays at that elevated level of tension for so long. And when you come down, I remember when we left Iraq, we went to Camp Virginia in Kuwait before we caught our plane home. We got to Camp Virginia. We had like 30 hours before we were flying home. I found my cot and I lay down, and I woke up 16 hours later to my boss actually sitting there looking at me. And I'm like, this is weird. Why are you looking at me? He's like, we're just making sure you're okay because you've been asleep for a very long time. I was like, I'm starving, but for the first time in, 15 months, I felt safe enough for my whole body just to kind of shut down and recoup. And I had never experienced anything. And at the time, I didn't think I was stressed or hypertensive. Didn't feel it in the moment.
I've been there, man. I've been there. We pulled into port, and it was kind of a stressful underway. And I remember getting home, and going to bed. I went to bed probably at 7 o'clock that night, and I didn't wake up till 7 o'clock the next night. I woke up, but it was a weekend, everybody was on leave or on weekend. I can't remember. I didn't have to go to work, and I was so glad that I just could sleep as long as I wanted. But I didn't feel that tired until I laid down, and then I crashed out. And I get you. Yeah.
I have the same exact story that you both are saying, because I was in Paris and I got on the plane, and all I remember is buckling in, saying hi to the guy next to me. And then I wake up and we're landing and everyone is hustling and bustling around. And I'm like, what is the deal? And he was like, we were on the tarmac for 2 hours before we ever took off, so we're late. And I was like, oh, okay.
You slept through all the layover, waiting,
the waiting on the tarmac. Like, I was out.
That was a unique experience, and it was kind of weird to get, and then there was the grog kind of coming out of it, because now your body has actually your body took a timeout, like a legit timeout, and now you're just kind of getting everything back to normal again. But it was that experience was eye-opening, because you don't feel like you're operating at that high level of tension. It just becomes an everyday thing. You just absorb that, okay, I'm in danger. I'm at threat. I need to pay attention. But it becomes that heightened level of attention just becomes every day.
Right.
And then you bring that home. And so now you're hyper attentive at home, and your family's looking at you like, are you okay? Is everything like, I seriously, our stupid ass garbage truck in Alaska would come at like 4 a.m. and they, this is one of those big like dumpster trucks, right?
Oh yeah.
So it picked up the dumpster, dumped it, and then it slammed the dumpster on the ground. I legit rolled out of bed and went directly underneath the bed, like I normally would have. We were in Kalsu, Iraq, so we got rocketed all the time, and that just became what we just roll out of bed and crawl underneath. And so I did that, and my wife, she starts laughing. She's like, what the hell are you doing under the bed? And I was like, I fucking hate the garbage man. I hate him. Like,
you're ready for war.
It was, I couldn't do Walmarts for like at least a year. Just there's too many people. It was like,
oh yeah, I hear you.
So unsafe.
Too much to choose from. There's so many boxes of cereal. Why are there so many types of cereal?
Yeah.
It was it was super weird how that affects your body, and good on the service for finally acknowledging that and not telling us just to soldier on and tighten up your boots,
take some Motrin and carry on.
No, it's I'm super happy to see that they've taken some time.
I'm gonna tell you something, dude. I knew you were military before I knew you were military. I listened, I found your podcast before we even interacted on social media, on Twitter, right? So I was listening to it, and you said a couple times in a couple of different episodes, you were like, yeah, I'm preparing to retire. And I know you're not, I could tell by listening to you wasn't very old. And I knew, he's probably military. And it's funny how military knows
we can
military.
pick each other out.
Isn't it crazy? Yeah. Even I didn't see you. It was a podcast, and I knew you were military. Yeah. That's freaking crazy how we do that. And we don't even know we're doing it.
No,
we don't know we have that sixth sense, but we do.
We have a common language. We have you know what I mean? And that's the coolest thing. This weird, just I don't want to use the word. Oh shit, I don't even know what the right word is here. But that weird connection to people, and you see them across the room, you just kind of like, yep, I got you. Yeah. Or you hear
exactly. Even now that half the Navy is not allowed to go to a barber shop until like an hour ago. I still can pick out a military person because it looks like they just grew a head of hair. It's like they're still like getting used to it.
Yeah, they don't know what's going on. They don't know what to do.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, you done? Hey, so you're still drinking yours, Jamie?
Well, I just took my second sip. I thought we were doing this together, but apparently
I killed mine. His, so. I did the whole chewing thing. It was great. I loved it. I like that Powers. That's legit.
So, Jamie, what are you feeling? Not necessarily tasting different. What feels different about this one from the last one?
This one, now. I don't know if it's because we're on our second glass or what, but this one seems to be a little bit smoother as far as the way that it goes down. It still is hot, I guess, or warm, but it's not as it's not as harsh as the first one. It just seems a lot smoother.
Mhm.
And even when I, took my second sip and I breathed out, it just the breath was a lot smoother, if that makes sense. I don't know. I don't know
100%.
what I'm talking about, but
No, but you're spot on. And the difference that you're feeling is maturity. So the very first one was about 3 to 5 years old, somewhere in there. This is 12 years old or better. So they have to label with the youngest whiskey that's in there. So the youngest whiskey that they mixed in was 12 years old. 12 years is 12 to 15 years is the magic age for whiskey. That is the happy place for whiskey to age. So it sits in the barrel for 12 years, and that gives the barrel time to filter out a lot of the abrasive and aggressive ethanols and ethers and all those things out of that. So younger whiskeys have a tendency to be harsh and kind of sandpapery, but when you get to that nice softness, that full feeling, it's generally the age that has to do with that. So that's really, you're spot on. And what you're tasting is a difference in maturity.
So basically I'm a pro now.
Yeah. I'm going to start to come to your class.
So if you see a whiskey you like, right, you know this whiskey and you love this whiskey and it says 12 years on it, go ahead and buy it.
If you want to, sure.
Yeah.
There's other ways to do it. If you can find the minis, and I'm a big fan of the minis. So before you go buy a full bottle,
got it. Yeah.
Grab yourself a mini, and give that a shot. The minis are going to be, where you don't make the mistake, which I have made a couple of times here and here and here, where you have a big bottle of stuff that you really would rather not drink. Because although it sounds great, the label looks amazing, it's just awful.
Right. You save a little money.
Yeah.
If you don't like it, it's not as all right, we're gonna take a pause real quick in case we have to edit something out. Jamie's doing some stuff.
I'm just plugging in the computer.
Okay. Oh, my bad. I was in a hurry. Cool. Let you come back and we'll carry on.
He forgot to plug in the computer.
Yeah, I was in a hurry because I got back like right in time to get everything hooked up, and I was my bad. All right, go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Well, so if you have the opportunity to taste it, bars are a great place. I know that's kind of weird with COVID right now, but buying a glass of whiskey, if you go to a good bar and trying it there, it might only cost you, $10 to $20 as opposed to 70 to 80 for a bottle that you would rather give away than drink yourself. So
right, definitely.
So yeah, but generally older whiskeys, and there's a lot of whiskeys that are older that don't have an age statement. So you gotta, when you look at a label, there's a whole art to a label. The number that's on that label is the minimum age. And then there are non-age statement labels. So there's labels that don't have any age statement at all. Doesn't mean that they're not old. The words that they use on the label can help you indicate, if it says straight, it's at least 2 years old. So straight whiskeys are at least a minimum of 2 years old, or 4 years old. If they're less than that, they have to put like how old they are. It's got to be a younger thing. So yeah, there's a whole lot of like legal rules and stuff. So you can kind of whittle down what it is that you're drinking by just looking at the label and reading the words. And get a guess. And then there's places like Wild Turkey is known for throwing in some really awesome old whiskey into their normally bottled stuff. So just because it doesn't, don't wave off. There's a lot of people that they hunt for the numbers. They're looking for that 12, 15, 20 year stuff. There are plenty of 20 and 30-year-old whiskeys that taste like a piece of wood that I would rather not drink. And then there's been some 24-month whiskeys that are phenomenal.
Cool.
Would clean be a way to describe, because I feel so I just took my third sip and I chewed it and I feel like clean. Is that, or no? Okay.
Did you take a shower?
No, I'm clean.
I know what you're saying.
That's what I feel.
Clean is a word that I use very often. Specifically for Irish whiskeys, because Irish whiskeys are a very clean sipping whiskey. We are going to taste a dirty whiskey here in just a little bit. And you'll see the difference. So clean is right on. Like that's perfect. Look at you. you're freaking killing the game.
Wow.
So we're going to start a show. It's called Whiskey with Jamie.
Whiskey with Jamie and her amazing palate.
She has a very exquisite palate, educated, if you will.
So let me. There's a huge difference between physiology between men and women, right? And one thing we're seeing here in America and in Scotland as well now, women whiskey makers, their palates are completely different. Yeah. In my top 5 whiskeys right now, 2 of them are made by women. The number 1 would be Molly Troop. She makes Freeland Spirits in Oregon. Her bourbon is unreal, and just because they have the ability to pick out different flavor profiles, and where you look at the distilleries, Jim Beam, Wild Turkey, these families, these old guys that have been making whiskey for longer than you and I have been alive together, they make that bold, rough, aggressive kind of whiskey, versus these folks that are coming in. Silverback is another one. They're bourbons, they're whiskeys, but they are this incredible, delicate, floral flavor profile that blows you away. You're not expecting it. And you drink it. Lisa Wicker makes Widow Jane's. If you ever see Widow Jane on the shelves at your store, pick up a bottle. You won't be upset that you did. And it's unreal. She makes phenomenal whiskey. So I love there's sometimes where I really enjoy the big, bold, strong stuff. But really that my palate kind of tends to the sweeter, lighter, cleaner. That's why I like Irish whiskey so much, side of the house. So you, awesome. Jamie, could be tasting something completely different than both Heath and I, because physiology is a thing, and how your olfactory senses are structured different. So, and
we're better at sighting rifles too. I mean, look, go women.
Chick power.
Yeah. I mean, our clusters are tighter than men typically, statistically speaking.
So before your head gets too big, can we get a number 3?
Okay.
Quick, get her another whiskey.
So real quick, while I'm pouring number 3 in, if you could just tell us about your passion for whiskey, because look, man, I feel like I'm sitting under the knowledge tree here. You're throwing this stuff out and I'm sure you have a lot of years experience. So what you got you started in this whiskey passion?
So I came home from Iraq, and my wife had bought me a bottle while I was gone of Woodford Reserve. And that was really the first time I experienced whiskey. I did drink a bottle of Blanton's before that. My buddy bought that for my birthday, and I mixed it with Coke. I had no idea what I was drinking at the time. It was the worst decision I ever could have made in hindsight. But the Woodford is where it kind of started for me. And for the very first time ever, I drank it neat, and I was like, wow, there's more to this than what I thought. And from there, it just kind of went on. I fell in love with Jim Beam right away. That was the very first distillery I ever visited. So Beam became my happy place, and everything from, white label to Baker's. I've got the Distiller's Masterpiece now sitting over here. The Beam family has been unbelievable whiskey makers. It's actually the Noes now. Fred and his son Freddie Noe are making the Beam whiskey. They also make Knob Creek. Granddad. Yep. And a bunch of other lines. Baker's, if you see Baker's, get a bottle of that. It's so good. It's so very good. But anyway, so it started with that. And a lot of it was, I was drinking whiskey and I was mixing it with ginger ale or seltzer waters. Mm-hmm. And then eventually I just kind of stopped and was like, I always tasted it neat to kind of see what the whiskey did and how it felt. And then from there, I just transitioned over into, and now I'm a primarily neat drinker, except for the summertime. If we're doing like a fire or a hangout, barbecue or whatnot, I'll grab a mason jar, fill it up with ice, put in a couple ounces of whiskey, and then put a lemon lime seltzer water in there. And that'll be my sipper for the day. So, but other than that, it's, it's a Glencairn with a couple ounces of whiskey neat throughout that. So I started with bourbon. Bourbon was my happy place. As you can see, the bar behind me is primarily bourbon. Just recently, within the last, I'd say probably 2 or 3 years, I started kind of opening up with rye, started exploring with Irish whiskeys, getting into a lot more scotches now. I found some really top-notch scotches that I really enjoy. and started dabbling with some Japanese whiskeys here just recently. I've only got 3 bottles of Japanese whiskey, but it is very close to Scotch. So
how's the selection over there in Massachusetts? As far as like, do you get Japanese whiskey in Massachusetts?
Yeah. So I'm a hunter. I travel an inordinate amount. And so within my state, but I also travel a lot for work. So whenever I go TDY or temporary duty to these locations to do tests and stuff, I always find time to do a liquor store run, and I'll hit 3 or 4 stores in that town because different states carry different things at different prices. So I can get things in Texas and Arizona way cheaper than I can get in Massachusetts.
Do you ever come to Louisiana?
I haven't yet.
Well, if you do, let us know.
Yeah, and I think I'll chat with you after this, but but I may be closer or close enough at least to day trip to y'all.
Cool.
Here in the near future.
That's awesome, man. So I feel you like when I started drinking whiskey, which I never was. I was a beer drinker forever, and I still like beer. Don't get me wrong. It's just I kind of lay off of because of carbs and all that, but I still drink it. I still love it. It's a passion. I hang out with an uncle of mine. He liked whiskey. Because he loved whiskey. So I would mix it with Coke, and he would just mix it with water.
Yep.
And then I was like, well, one day I tried it. I said, it's not bad. I like it. And then Jamie bought me a bottle of Johnny Walker. Was a Blue Label, I think.
I did.
Yeah, it was good, man. It's gone.
Yeah.
I kept it for about a year. That's about as long as I could hold out. But I drank it neat. I loved it. I thought it was great. Now I started drinking some not now I'm gonna tell myself I drink Evan Williams with water. I know Evan Williams is a lower shelf whiskey, but I liked it with water.
Well, he's Cajun. So.
Yeah, pretty much anything. It's Louisiana, so pretty much it's wet, I'll drink it. Like I told you. And now that I've had some more like Jameson Irish whiskey, I drink neat.
Yep.
I bought some Maker's Mark, I drink it neat. Now I'm getting more into the neat thing. That's recent. That's within the last year or less.
Maker's Mark has a great story. So they're a wheated bourbon. Wheated bourbons tend to be sweeter, which is incredible. Again, it's also a great first-time whiskey for folks, like an introductory whiskey. So you don't get a lot of the bitterness with when and all they do is they, instead of putting in rye, because it's usually corn, rye, and barley, they put in wheat instead, and that brings out a whole different flavor profile. So the guy who made Makers for the longest time was actually a graduate of the academy. He played football for West Point for a few years. Dave Pickerel was his name. He then left Makers and went and did some other stuff around the Northeast there, but he was another West Point grad. And the military history that is intertwined in bourbon is unreal.
Bourbon and rum.
Yeah. Don't forget your sailors.
That's true. I did a recording last night with another Navy buddy of mine, Jeff Norris from Chuck Goes to the Movies podcast, and he introduced me to the very first ever bottle of rum I've ever had on my bar is now here because he said, "Hey, go grab this and we'll drink this and we'll talk." I was like, "All right, cool." So yeah, last night was rum night. Papa Pillar.
When I was real quick story, then we'll go into what we're drinking here. But I was in England. I did a flyaway where I helped out a submarine in England, Plymouth, England. So when we had a lot of time off, so I went and toured the Plymouth Gin Factory.
Ooh.
Yes, but the thing about it was so awesome how they've been involved with the British Navy before the American Navy since before the Mayflower sailed. So in the drinking room where you had your free cocktail after you were done with the tour, it was the place the Pilgrims met right before their voyage to America. So you're talking about, they had a list of everybody on a wood engraving, everybody who's selling Mayflower in their jobs. I was just like, holy cow, this is crazy.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That is awesome. And rum, the liquor in America really was rum that was brought up, on the slave triangle. They bring it up from the islands, and that was really, in New England, they were distilling rum initially until there was a lot more immigration that came in, a lot of folks from England, Scotland, and Ireland, and they brought their stills with them. And then they kind of set up house on the western side of Pennsylvania, what's now West Virginia, and those areas, the Monongahela valleys. So you hear stories about the Monongahela rye, and then whiskey took over. from rum. And then there was also some import tax things that kind of hurt rum for a little bit there in the early years of America. But yeah, it was rum was the start.
Nice. Awesome. So what are we drinking here, Ian?
So this is a veteran-owned distillery up in New Hampshire, just north of me here. Kevin Curlin is an Air Force vet, served in Iraq. This is the Smoky Quartz Distillery. This is the V5 bourbon whiskey. This is their small batch now. This is aged 15 months. It's coming in at 90 proof. So we're actually going to take a little step down in proof from the last one, but it's incredibly less mature, I guess would be the right term to use there.
So when I swirled it, I had very long legs on this one. I mean, it very long leg, and it's a darker color too.
It is. I've been cheating. I've taken a few sips.
Oh,
I'm sorry.
We're supposed to do this together.
I know. I suck. I really like this, man. This is awesome whiskey.
So bourbon. This is all corn. This is all hold on. I want to make sure that I get this right, because the last thing I want is to not give the guy credit for his stuff. So it's all organic corn. So this is actually a truly organic whiskey, grown there locally. I'm pulling up, here we go. Gluten-free. There we go. That was what I was looking for. All right. So
for the health conscious.
For the health conscious drinkers. Yes. This is
so it's delicious and nutritious.
And nutritious.
Thank you, Air Force.
Always thinking about the health there. I love it.
So when I inhale it, it's a lot softer than the other two.
Yep.
Is that a word? I don't know. Soft. It's just softer smell. Softer inhale.
So you done the legs. You looked at the legs, right, Ian?
Oh yeah.
So are they moving? Are they a little less oily than the Irish whiskey? It seems like it's moving a little faster down.
So for mine, I would say no. So I'm seeing them move a lot slower. This is, I like to use the word gooey. This is a gooey whiskey.
Okay. Yeah, that's why I said my legs are long. They take a long way down.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So light with Irish whiskeys and a lot of your scotches, you'll see instead of the legs running necessarily down the glass, it'll kind of bead up in a line around the top there. So this is definitely running. This is running slow. So you should expect kind of a full mouth feel to this whiskey.
So one time, real quick, can you remind us on how to do the first sip, just for our listeners?
So the first sip, all we're doing is getting our mouth ready for the flavors that are coming in the second and third. So we don't want to let it sit for a long time. We don't want to move it around too much. So we're just going to run it front to back over our tongue and down the hatch.
So real quick, so on a scale to 1 to 10, how drunk are you right now, Jamie?
No, I'm okay. I'm okay.
No, give me a number. I know you're.
On a scale of 1 to 10, I swirled this and spilled it on my legs.
So, okay. So what did we give that a 6? Is that a 7?
I would say a 6.
I would say a 9. All right. We'll give it a hot 7. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's where I'm at. No, but it's still, I mean, it's a lot. I would say cleaner, but it still gives you that little bit of like
a little burn.
Yeah.
We call that stank in the South.
Put some stank on it.
So a lot of the edginess, the heat that you're getting has to do with age.
Okay.
So a lot of that's coming that it hasn't, the interaction of the distillate with the barrel hasn't had the time to kind of knock out that stuff. So this one would be a little more edgier, which might translate to heat, which might translate to the burn or whatever that you're feeling, because it's just younger. A lot of these smaller distilleries try to I don't know, make the aging process faster by using smaller barrels.
Yeah.
So the whiskey gets more contact time with the barrel. And really the barrel is what, especially with bourbons and ryes, the barrel is what drives the flavor. So the environmental impacts around the barrel and then the barrel itself, how it's charred, whether it's toasted, how long the whiskey kind of sits. And in places that have a lot of environmental diversity, meaning super cold winters, super hot summers. Kentucky, that's why Kentucky is one of the best places for whiskey, is because they have super cold winters, they have super hot summers. So in the wintertime, let's start with the summer. In the summertime, the fibers of the wood open up and the whiskey moves into the wood of the barrel. In the wintertime, all those fibers, they close back down and they push all that whiskey back into the barrel. So over years and years, there's also evaporation and a bunch of other stuff that happens, but the whiskey's moving in and out of that wood. So it's pulling in a lot of the vanillins, it's interacting with the char. The char is kind of taking out a lot of the ugly stuff that we don't want to drink necessarily. But it's all about movement in and out of that wood. And that's really where you get a lot of the characters and flavors from your whiskeys, especially bourbons, because they have to go into brand new oak every single time. Cool thing about Irish whiskeys and scotches is they can reuse barrels however they want, whenever they want. There's no rules. But for American whiskeys, they have to go into a new oak barrel every single time.
Now, I would say if this one did not have that young bite to it, I probably could drink this one.
Just kill the bottle, drink out of the bottle.
Yeah, because it would be, it's very flavorful. I mean, I don't know. We've only had one taste, but it's just good. It's good.
Almost a whole glass. It's great.
So Jamie, when you do the chew on this one, let me know if there's any difference.
Okay.
Go ahead and do your thing. Go ahead and chew it.
Let me get my second sip in.
Oh,
I'm way behind.
I'm like on my fifth, but when I chewed it, I tasted it burned a little more, but it was good. It didn't bother me. It was a good burn, but it was more than the Irish whiskeys we had before.
Yeah. And also with this, you should get a lot more caramel and vanilla.
Yes.
Influence. I'll give it the word influence, not flavor necessarily. And a lot of that has to do again with the corn that they're using instead of the barley that, with the Irish whiskeys that you're drinking. So the corn adds a lot more sugar profile. You'll see like cake flavors, a lot of the those, like cornbread kind of stuff kind of comes out.
Yeah, I kind of tasted corn.
Cornbread is big right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, big time.
No, I actually kind of tasted. So I took my second sip.
Oh. Okay.
And kind of tasted the corn or cotton is. I don't know.
I haven't eaten cotton in a while, so I don't remember what it tastes like.
I'm gonna have to let you guys tell me what cotton tastes like.
Well, okay. So I grew up next to a cotton field that turned into a cornfield that they would go back and forth on it. So, I guess I've eaten a couple of cotton.
Well, I grew up not too far. I've never eaten it though. I've never tried. And I was a fat kid, so if anybody's gonna be eating cotton, something, it'd been me. Oh shit.
I love it.
Hey, so what do you think? How many years do you think you're gonna do?
22. We're kind of already, we're in the wind down process. When I took this job, I told my boss I'd give him 2 working years and then 1 transition year. So
cool.
When I punch out, it'll be 22 years of service.
Nice. That's awesome, man. So what's your pay grade right now? So for Army terms?
Sergeant first class, E7.
E7, Sergeant first class. So in the Army, it's I'm not sure what it is in the Air Force. In the Navy, that's a chief petty officer.
Yep.
And in the Marine Corps, it's a gunnery sergeant.
Yep.
Yeah.
So on this third sip that I just took, I would say clean again.
It's clean, man. I agree with that. I like that.
But I know you said that's an Irish thing. So am I wrong?
No, you're not wrong. Remember, you can't be wrong because what you're tasting is what you're tasting. And so clean, I would maybe when it comes to bourbons, I would definitely say that for me personally, this is a little bit dirtier. And by dirty, I mean, it sits heavier on my tongue than Irish whiskey does. So the Irish whiskey kind of rolls over pretty quick and easy. This kind of sits and hangs out for a little bit longer. Kind of leaves some residual flavors along the way. So that's what I would translate it as being a little dirtier.
Okay.
Is what I would.
I really like it.
It's good.
I really like the Powers. I like this one. I've liked everything I've drank so far.
So maybe what I interpret as clean is more of the proof, like the the alcohol part
level,
of it.
yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't know.
Might
So
be.
just so everybody's listening knows, I told Ian, I was like, I want the Powers Gold. Everything else is bartender's choice, because his list was so big, I just went overload. So I was like, man, Ian, you tell me. And he told me, I told him what I kind of liked, and he sent it. And so far, he's been spot on. I've liked every one of these so far.
Wow.
I mean, really liked every one so far.
One of the fun things has been taking non-whiskey drinkers or new whiskey drinkers and really kind of showing them the differences that there are available to them for whiskey. So you got folks that are, they like the sweet whiskeys. Okay, cool. So I'll go grab, 4 or 5 bottles of sweet whiskeys, and we'll taste through those. So where do you like these? How do you like these? And, rate them, and knowing how they're made, what their chemical breakdown is, or what their ingredient breakdown is. You can really kind of tailor what you like. And once you find out, you find a brand, you get that brand. How do they make it? What do they use? There's a lot of brands that make very similar things, some better, some not so much. And you can really niche whiskey, and people, whiskey is whiskey. Well, no, that's not the case. It is incredibly diverse, and even across the country. A bourbon that comes out of Florida doesn't taste like a bourbon that comes out of Kentucky. Texas whiskey doesn't taste like anything that's made in Oregon. Environmental impacts, how they store the whiskey, all these things come into play, and it's not the same. They're all very different. They're very unique, and you can really hone in what you like about it, and then you can find multiple brands, multiple labels that have stuff along that same line, and really kind of just collect the flavors that you really enjoy.
So I have a question real quick. Sorry, Heath.
No,
I
you're
know
good.
you wanted to say something,
No.
but Heath and I used to be into wine, and we would go to all these different wineries, and we tasted a wine one time that was aged in a French barrel. And at the end of that wine, it was a butter
It tastes
flavor.
like you were drinking butter. It was
Um,
wonderful.
Is there anything that whiskey wise would be aged similar, or I don't know, like with a buttery taste?
There's quite a few. So rye
Okay.
whiskeys are going to be, they're going to give you that butter. And I'll shoot you over a list here when we're done. Right off the get-go. New Riff. So if you can find New Riff rye whiskey, that's going to be that'll get you there. And then there's a bunch of others. I wanted to give you at least one name on the show, and I'll shoot you a list once I have a chance to kind of go through my notes and get you. Now that I know that butter's a thing, yes, we can absolutely get you there. And rye whiskeys get that real bread doughy kind of kind of feel and flavor. So, well, absolutely,
that's awesome, because that stuff was like butter. I
It's
forgot
so
about
good,
that.
right?
Yeah, that was at the Becker's.
Becker winery in Texas.
It's-
I'm from Texas,
she's a
so if I
Texan.
talk slow, I only get slower the more I drink. So
do you know that how hard it is to hear how great everything is in Texas?
it's true.
I have spent a lot of time in Texas
but
last year, so I can hear. I feel you.
if you're listening and you're like, man, she is just talking slow. Well, guess what? The more I drink, the slower it gets, people.
Hi, y'all. I'm from Texas. All right. Hey, let's jump into number 4. Are y'all ready to jump into number 4? I don't want to rush
Yeah,
y'all.
I am.
You ready, Ian?
Yeah. So do you guys happen to have like a water nearby?
No, but should we go grab some?
If you can grab just a little bit of water, switch around in your glass before we get into number 4, because number 4 is kind of fun.
Okay. Awesome. On this, we'll take a break for hear from a word from our sponsors, and I'll go get some water. I'm just gonna get your water bottle.
No, switch it around. He said clean out the glass.
Well, so if you get a water bottle, it's good. And my fault. I'm sorry, I didn't prep this ahead of time. But a water bottle is good to clean out the glass between whiskeys and to drink. So you'll switch it around, then you'll actually drink it. Also kind of helps you stay hydrated and punch through the taste.
I wonder if that's why I tasted the clean between the Irish and the last one.
Well,
No,
I'll just give you a glass.
Yeah, just put water in there. You can throw water, just water. Yeah, so I may have to edit out my pauses because I feel it. Fill the whiskey, and he's pouring about half of the bottle in his and half in mine. So,
well, those are 2-ounce samples, so you're putting down a good chunk of whiskey this evening.
oh, okay.
You're doing a great job.
God,
Yeah,
I'm such a lightweight.
no, you're muscling through. That's a lot.
So what's a normal drink, a 1 ounce glass?
One, I mean, normal's normal. It's hard to describe. So tastings, I try to keep it at about a half ounce. Especially if you're going to be drinking, 3 or more. If it's just a good glass at the end of the day, I'll go 1.5 ounces to 2 and just sip it slow for a good chunk of time. 2 ounces to 4 ounces with a cigar.
So you're saying that what we are sampling here, 4 ounces, is a night on the town?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
In an hour.
No wonder I'm feeling the way
Yeah, you're a champ right now, Jamie. You're
a trooper. All right, you ready to get back?
Yeah, I'm putting that part in.
All right, okay. Oh, well, I'll say it again once we start.
Well, I need everyone to know how good I'm doing.
We'll say it again. Okay. All right, start again in 3, 2, 1. Welcome back to the E-14 podcast with my friend Ian from the Wild Whiskey podcast. So I want to just let everybody know, Ian, please confirm that Jamie is a champ right now.
Oh, she's a beast. She's handling a lot of very robust whiskeys and in maintaining.
Okay, so let's get into it because I didn't realize how much I was drinking. And so these are 2 ounce bottles that you sent us. So yep. Heath and I are each putting away 1 ounce per tasting, which is, I mean, pretty much. And we've only been going for an hour.
So she's wearing a hoodie right now that says "Beautiful Badass." So is she really a badass?
100%.
All right, cool.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. I mean, so she's not slurring. She's not, she's not like leaning on her mic. You're not holding her hair back. Like, no, this is for somebody who doesn't drink whiskey to be 3 ounces in and be taking it like this is, I'm impressed. You're awesome.
That's because I'm a sailor.
There you go. It's got to be the Navy thing.
So we're going to get into number 4, but as I pour, Ian, if you could tell us what got you into podcasting, because dude, you got a great voice for it. I love your show. So please, what got you into podcasting?
So I knew my time with the military was coming to an end, and I needed to start building some form of portfolio for when I leave the Army, because I want to work in whiskey and I want to work in history. So the end goal would be to be a corporate historian for one of the big distilleries. And that's going to take time, and I have to show them. I've got to build a reputation in the community before I'll even get looked at to come in the door. So really podcasting was the place where I could do all 3 things. I could dive into, nerd out, as it's called, on history. I could drink whiskey while I do it, and I can, build credibility on both realms. I can, if I research well enough, I put the content together, and I can present things that maybe people haven't heard of, stuff that's out there. I'm not bringing anything new to the table, but maybe just slice elements of stories that aren't as popular as others, and getting it out there and kind of showing that I have the ability to communicate well, and maybe eventually start doing tours and all that kind of stuff with one of the big whiskey companies. So that's really why I started. And then pandemic kicked off, and I had a lot of time and a microphone, and so I went to work.
And a lot of whiskey.
And a lot of whiskey. Oh my God. So one of the greatest things, they lifted the now the whiskey's getting to me now. They lifted a lot of the bans on shipping alcohol for the pandemic. So yes, all of a sudden now I could reach out to these distilleries that I couldn't before and be like, hey, can you send me a bottle of that? And they'd be like, yeah, sure. And so yes, my collection grew quite exponentially during the pandemic.
So you made lemonade out of lemons.
Yes.
So I got a question though.
Manhattans.
Right. So when you make it big, right, in the history biz, you gonna quit podcasting?
No.
Good, man. Because we need you. We need people like you here in the biz, because I enjoy the hell out of your show.
It is awesome.
The connections with people has been the absolute most rewarding thing. I've met, some of the most great people from such, I know I've used the word a lot tonight, but such a diverse background, from all walks of life, and everybody's willing to come in. They're willing to drink. They're willing to talk, and just sharing their story. I did a episode with Aaron. And see, this is so bad. Their names, God damn it. Anyway,
it's okay because we're three whiskeys in. So I mean, come on.
I'm half drunk. So
Daniel, Aaron and Daniel, they had just left the Mormon Church. So we did an episode on the history of the Mormon Church. So I brought the academic side of it. They brought the story from inside the church, and
wow.
It was unreal. And I met them at a wedding, just a random wedding. And we started chatting. And I was like, oh shit. Like, yeah, no. And so they came on and they shared their story, and it was, connections like that. And then, connections with you guys is phenomenal. And listening to a sister service, is it Gaining the Anchor?
No. Oh, Chasing the Anchor.
Chasing the Anchor.
There we go. Yeah. So listening.
The Gaining would have been a better play on words, but
that's good. Thank you for just making me just throw out everything I wanted to do. God, I'm such a loser.
Not at all. But I hear Army speak, and I hear a lot of that same stuff on the Army side of the house. So it's been really great to kind of listen to the differences in services, because the Navy, the Air Force is kind of easy to get. The Marines, you throw a box of crayons at them and they're fine.
True. They love crayons. Yes,
bless their hearts.
But the Navy is this complex, weird, multi-layered thing. Your rank structure varies, rates. I don't even know what that means. So trying to get into that, and to hear, a senior non-com share that wisdom in such a public forum, open to everybody and anybody, is fantastic. And I really appreciate the fact that you're not only doing this to podcast, right? You're doing this to make those around you in your branch of service better. And that's absolutely commendable. So
as you know, man, senior enlisted guy to senior enlisted guy, senior enlisted female lady, that's our job.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's 100% our job. That's why we get paid, to lift up the junior guys to replace us one day, right?
And build a dynasty.
Build a dynasty.
That's right. That's why the Navy and the Army's been around for so long, because people have done that. So without further ado, what are we drinking?
Well, you guys are going to be drinking. If I can't seem to get the bottle open, it's a little stuck right now.
You can watch us live vicariously through our eyes.
Oh, I'm going to be so upset if I have to rip this thing off. So the oldest distillery in New York City is currently, it was the first distillery to come back after Prohibition. It started in 2010. That's the joke. They were first distillery to come back. So David Haskell and Colin Spolman start this thing. It's called Kings County Distillery. They are Kentucky boys who are moonshiners. They started making moonshine, went to college in New York, started bringing their moonshine to the parties. It got crazy. Everybody started loving it. So okay, we need to go legal, because if we don't, we're going to get in prison for a very long time. So they go legal. They start Kings County Distillery. It's in Brooklyn. It's actually, and this is the reason I picked this one for you guys specifically. So it is in 2012, the distillery moved into the Paymaster building in the historic Brooklyn Navy Yard. So go to Brooklyn, and their facility is absolutely gorgeous. It's these old buildings. It's incredible. So I figured we'd throw in a little Navy connection in there for y'all. And I'm still gonna fight this bottle. Oh, I got it. Oh.
So for our sailors out there, this is dark. It's not, I wouldn't even say there's legs. It's a wall coming down.
Yeah, it is. It is a wall.
This shit looks tough.
That's the first time you've cussed on air.
Oh.
All right. So this is a straight bourbon whiskey. It is 4 years old. It is a wheated bourbon. So remember, it's corn, wheat, and barley instead of rye.
Okay.
So it means probably be a little bit sweeter. This is a single barrel selection from my local store here. They find the best barrels of this stuff, and this is no exception to that rule. This is by far the most potent thing that we're going to be putting in our mouths this evening. This comes in at 66.5 ABV.
Ooh.
Is 122 proof, or 120, excuse me, 123.
I could tell all of that from the swirl. I mean,
she could tell from the legs.
Yeah, there was no legs. It's a wall coming down.
Oh my goodness.
So this is hot. This is very hot, but the layers on this, the flavor layers are pretty intense. So take your time with this one. And what I would encourage, if you have water available, maybe a drop or two in there, to kind of see where it goes and enjoy. So from the Navy Yard in Brooklyn, this is Kings County Distillery. Cheers, friends.
Cheers.
Not to brag, I am a senior chief in the Navy, and I can take this.
My goodness, my nose is burning.
Oh wow, that got some stank on it, as we say in the South.
That'll hit you hard.
Oh, that's good though, man. I like it.
That one will get you. If you ever come across an Elijah Craig barrel proof, definitely pick those up. They're great. They launch them 3 times a year. Each batch is different. It's a high proof whiskey that doesn't drink like a high proof whiskey, and then that's one that you can add water to, and it just becomes candy in your glass.
Yeah, wow.
It's phenomenal. But
dilute a little bit, right? And it becomes candy.
Yeah.
It's tough. We don't have water. Typical sailors, right? We don't have water. But it is.
I love it though. It's got good flavor.
You know, the same way that it falls down your glass is the same way that it goes down, I would say. Long
and slow. And with higher proof whiskeys, the first time I did like a really high proof whiskey, it was Booker's, and I remember I put it in my mouth, but immediately I couldn't feel anything on my tongue, but it felt like my entire mouth was just full of stuff. It wasn't at all. It was a small sip,
right.
But just those alcohol vapors and all that stuff made my mouth feel like it was just completely full. And it was like, what the hell is happening to my body right now?
Yeah.
And it takes time. And that's why you want to start on the low end and work your way up to this. This would definitely be something that you don't want to start with.
I would say it almost pairs to heartburn.
Yes.
No, I like it. It's got a lot of good flavor though. I got a little caramel in there. Mm-hmm. Is that wrong?
I don't know. I haven't.
You can't be wrong.
We haven't drank our second shit. Our second.
I drank my second.
Our second sip.
I already did.
Oh.
Tell you, you're slacking, baby.
So when you chew this one, Jamie, this one should light your mouth up a little bit.
So I'm not to the chew yet. I was on my second one.
Whoa.
And I taste cinnamon.
You know, Ian.
Is that it?
Yes, absolutely.
When I took that chew, I just chewed I can't breathe in too hard or I'll cough. That stuff's tight. Oh, it's tough.
So yeah, I'm on my second sip. I tasted cinnamon and I want to say butter, but no, that is that right?
I got a little bit of butter. No, I can see that.
So consistency wise, it might feel like buttery, like it might feel more than butter than taste like butter. So that's a thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
So their bottles are super cool.
Wow,
they look like
awesome.
Old school medicine bottles.
With
these little labels.
Like apothecary bottles of poison.
You know, for our listeners out there, this bottle is awesome. It looks just like Ian said, a medicine bottle.
Yeah, they should put a skull and crossbones on it.
Right. Or you got some guy in 1902 trying to sell some potions on the street saying it's going to cure everything.
So they make the 275s, and the 275s fit perfectly in your back pocket. So I've got a couple of them like sitting right up on the shelf right over here. They're awesome.
When you're strolling through the park.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. At West Point, they'd have these awesome summer concert things right there on the river, right on the Hudson. And
Nice.
yeah, no, just slide that in the back pocket and sip and listen to the band play. And it was awesome.
Right, jam out.
Hey, if you ever get a hold of their owner or their marketing rep, tell them I said skull and crossbones. Put it right dead center.
we got TM that shit.
Sink their bones to Davy Jones. That is serious.
Yeah, this stuff is good, man. I mean, it's strong. Don't get me wrong, but it's got some good flavors.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it is aggressive. They have a beautiful lineup of whiskeys as well. So they make this incredible chocolate whiskey. They're bottled in bond is my favorite of theirs. 4 years old. It's 100 proof, so it's significantly lighter than this. And it sips great. And they are a very grain forward whiskey. And so this one isn't really an adequate, or not, that's the wrong word, an accurate depiction of their normal lineup. Right. So grain forwards mean you're tasting a lot more of the grain is much more present. So the corns, the ryes, those things really stand out. Their Empire Rye whiskey will knock your socks off. It is so good. Oh, it is so good.
You know, Ian, just so you know, man. So there's this, I told you about the Facebook page, Veterans Whiskey Club.
Yep. So
I name dropped you already. So they know that we're doing this podcast right now, and I'm going to drop it to them because these guys are ridiculously crazy about whiskey. They love their whiskey. I mean, I've never been on a page that posted so much. They are into it, and that's awesome. I love looking at it, and I can't wait for them to hear this. I think they're going to really enjoy it.
So I have a question, Ian, because I'm not a whiskey drinker, and I'll tell you why. Back in my young sailor days, I was at a bar with a bunch of other sailors, and this guy from Tennessee decided that we were all going to shoot Jack Daniels, and hot or neat or whatever you want to call it. In a shot glass. Okay. That is the worst shot I have ever taken in my life. I thought I was going to throw up. And I don't want you to badmouth them because they're a huge brand, but where are we tasting wise versus the ever popular Jack Daniels whiskey, Tennessee whiskey?
So we're close. So the Tennessee whiskey, the difference between a Tennessee whiskey and a bourbon, right, is the Lincoln County process. They double mellow their whiskey over maple charcoal. So they take their distillate off the still and then they filter it through maple charcoal before they put it into the barrels. And that's the Lincoln County process. So one thing that does do, and you can taste it. So if you got like a Jim Beam white label and a Jack Daniels black label, and you taste them side by side, that clean note that you're tasting would definitely be present in Jack Daniels. That would be a thing. Okay. So it is a little bit more filtered. We are we're playing the same game, but we're in a different ballpark. So people who do shots of whiskey, like legit do shots of whiskey, need a hug and a taxi because they're whatever's going on with them at that moment, they need to go home. So for me personally, I can't do shots of whiskey. It's too much. And it fries you. So if you were to do a shot of something that's 95 proof or higher, you're done tasting stuff for the rest of the evening because you're just going to melt your whole palate. So Jack Daniels makes some unbelievable stuff. Their gold label, their Sinatra is it's fantastic. And very comparable to the V5 that we drank as far as consistency. A lot of the flavors are very similar. And it's a 90 proof. So it's not like crazy hot, but it's enough to let you know that you're drinking something that's
you did an episode on Old Blue Eyes, didn't you?
Sure did.
Yep, on Frank Sinatra. So cool story. I'm from a very, very, very small town in Texas.
Texas.
I mean, we got a 4-way stop, and that's about it.
Yeah.
But one of the girls from that town, or my town, Bowling, Texas, married Frank Sinatra's son. Can you believe that?
No shit.
Yes.
I didn't know that.
Yes. I mean, from Bowling, Texas, which is about an hour south of Houston on some back country roads, maybe not paved or whatever, but from a little bitty town. I mean, we have like one 4-way stop is our main. Yeah, that's it.
They don't have a red light.
We got a blinking red light.
Yeah, a blinking red light.
But yeah, one of the girls, and I just thought that was so neat, But anyway, you said Sinatra, so that made me think of that.
Super small world, and it's fun. And so he was a huge Jack Daniel's fan, and they actually, Jack Daniel's put out the Sinatra blend specifically for him. It's older, it's more, they use the word smooth. I don't really like that word with whiskey. The flavor profile is very distinct, and it's very, very different. So also their single barrels, the Jack Daniel's single barrels, are fantastic. If you're going to play with Tennessee whiskeys, I would recommend you start there. Maybe not the barrel proof one, but their single barrel whiskeys and their single barrel, Tennessee whiskeys, and then their rye whiskeys are really, really great. The black label, the normal Jack Daniel's you see, it should be mixed with something.
Yeah, right.
That's
Are you
kind
okay?
of weird. You all right over there?
Sorry, I chewed the last.
It's tough, right?
The last sip.
Intense.
It's strong, but it's good.
Wow.
You gonna be okay? So while you're recovering, I have a question for you, Ian. So bourbon. Let's talk about bourbon. So bourbon, is it true? You hear the statement, can it only be made in Kentucky?
No. It can be made. It can only be made in America, but it is not exclusive to Kentucky. A lot of people think that because a lot of your biggest bourbon brands are based in Kentucky, and that is due to a lot of proximity to grain and the limestone water that's there, and then the ecological diversity, the difference in seasons, is prime for making great bourbon. So bourbon, really, the primary rules, it has to be 51% corn or better, can only be made in the States, has to go into the barrel at no hotter than 125. And then there's there's a whole bunch of other technical rules, but no, bourbon can be made anywhere in America.
In America, so the continental US, or does it count Alaska and Hawaii?
So yes, it would count those. So you could make in Alaska or Hawaii.
Okay, cool. How you feeling, baby?
Oh, I'm done.
You may finish it. Can I finish your glass?
Yeah, you can.
Oh, so I get to finish.
So I got through the whole 3 sips. I just want to say that. This is residual backwash.
I'm gonna drink Jamie's backwash. It's not backwash, but it's only a little bit left.
Yeah.
I love when you go on tours. Sorry.
No, go ahead, Ian.
When you go on tours, a lot of times they'll let you like stick your finger in stuff and touch stuff, and you always see. They get a little weird. They're like, oh, like I don't want to do that. Like they touched it, they put their fingers there. Like, that's literally like 140 proof. So anything that was on their fingers is now dead, and you're good. So like whenever I go to
you
always see the weird germaphobes, and I'm just like, oh no, I'll stick my finger in anything. Let me taste all of that stuff. Let me do it.
I'm in the Army. I'm immune to everything. You can't get me with nothing.
For real. Yeah. So if the things I ate on deployment didn't freaking kill me, then I'm good to go.
Yeah, because what you ate on deployment probably looked back at you. What are you doing?
Yeah, and sometimes
I know.
Yeah.
Well, man, we're done with this, man. Dude, thank you so much.
Thank you so much
for being sending us this and being so awesome with us. And you're one of the first people that reached out to me after we started this, and you've been awesome. I appreciate everything, and thank you for all the knowledge you dropped on us, and just being awesome. I really appreciate it.
The pleasure's all mine, guys. This is awesome. I love talking to service members. I love talking to vets. I love hanging out with folks just in general, and drinking whiskey's even better. So this really has been quite enjoyable. Thanks. And Jamie, you're awesome. A little water, a little water and some Motrin would probably be a good idea after this.
We got you. We got you. 800 milligram. So please, before we kick off, I'd like you to give us a little information about your podcast. Please give us a plug.
Sure. So every other Friday, I drop episodes. Can vary between whiskey topics, history topics, whatever. It's a history podcast with a whiskey problem, or a whiskey podcast with a history problem. We'll let you figure that out. But that's us. That's what we do.
Well, I say you never have a whiskey problem, so you must have a history problem.
Must have.
So drop us your handle so we can get a hold of you, or our listeners can check you out.
Sure. Why Whiskey Podcast on Instagram. I'm Whiskey Y, Whiskey_Y on Twitter. And then you can find me on pretty much every podcast platform that's out there.
Awesome.
Now, would you like to leave us with one tip for someone who may be looking to get into whiskey, or maybe a whiskey drinker that needs to know more? Would you like to leave us with something?
There's a lot of people that will give you a lot of information and tell you what to drink. Don't necessarily follow them. If you see something weird and new on the shelf, grab it and give it a go. There's so many incredible craft distilling companies out there right now. The little guys are making phenomenal stuff. They just don't get the billing that the big companies do. So a lot of the big companies are going to push their stuff. Try that weird bottle that you see sitting on the shelf.
Awesome. Thank you for that. And don't go away, because we want to talk after this. So also check us out at E-14 podcast.
On Facebook.
We're on every forum for podcasts.
At E14 Podcast.
At E14 Podcast.
And with that, we wish you fair winds.
And following seas.
Yeah. So we're going to stop recording, but that was so phenomenal.
Well, I'm drunk.
God dang.
One second. I'm going to stop this recording real quick.